Small shotguns look simple from the outside. Short barrel, compact frame, easy to move around. Perfect for home defense, right? Not always. And that is where a lot of buyers make a mistake, because the smallest shotgun is not always the best shotgun. A compact shotgun can be easier to store, easier to maneuver, and easier to keep close by in tight spaces. But it can also be harder to control, harder to aim, rougher under recoil, and less forgiving for shooters who have not trained with it. That is why this topic matters, because in 2026, there are more compact shotgun options than ever before. Some are genuinely practical, some are niche tools, and some look better on the shelf than they actually feel when you shoot them. So today, we're breaking down the smallest home defense shotguns and shotgun-style firearms that buyers still talk about in 2026, not based on hype, not based on looks, but based on real-world size, handling, reliability, and practicality. And by the end, you'll know which compact shotguns actually make sense, and which ones require a lot more caution than people admit. Number 5. Beretta A300 Ultima Patrol. Now, the Beretta A300 Ultima Patrol is not the smallest shotgun on this list, but it belongs here for one important reason. It is compact enough to be practical, without giving up the control that many ultra-short shotguns lose, and that matters. The A300 Ultima Patrol is a semi-automatic 12-gauge built for defensive-style use. It has an 5-inch barrel, a shorter overall setup than many sporting shotguns, and a design that makes it easier to handle indoors than a long field gun. But the real advantage is shootability, because this is where many people misunderstand compact shotguns. They think smaller automatically means better, but if a shotgun is too short, too light, or too awkward to shoulder properly, it can become harder to use well. The A300 Patrol avoids that problem. It still has a proper stock. It still gives the shooter a real shoulder-mounted platform, and because it is gas-operated, recoil is softer than many pump-action shotguns. That makes follow-up shots easier and reduces fatigue during practice. Now, it is not cheap, it is not as small as a Shockwave or Bullpup shotgun, and for people on a strict budget, it may be too expensive. But if someone wants a compact home defense shotgun that still behaves like a real shotgun, the A300 Ultima Patrol is one of the strongest choices. It proves something important. Sometimes the best small shotgun is not the absolute shortest. It is the shortest one you can still shoot confidently. Number 4. Mossberg 590S Shockwave. The Mossberg Shockwave is probably the first firearm many people think of when they hear small shotgun, and visually it makes sense. It is short, it is recognizable, it has that famous bird's head grip, and it looks like it was built for tight spaces. But here is the truth, the Shockwave is not for everyone. The 590S Shockwave is especially interesting because it can run multiple shell lengths depending on the model and setup. That makes it more flexible than older versions in some ways, but the basic challenge remains the same. Without a traditional shoulder stock, the Shockwave is harder to control than a standard shotgun. That is not an opinion, that is simply how the platform works. A shoulder stock gives you stability, it gives you better recoil control, it gives you a more natural sight picture. When you remove that, the firearm becomes smaller, but also more demanding. That is why the Shockwave is both attractive and controversial. For an experienced shooter who understands its limitations, it can be a compact, reliable, close-range option. But for a new shooter looking for an easy home defense shotgun, it may not be the smartest first choice. The recoil feels sharper, the aiming is less intuitive, and it takes practice to run well. The good news is that the Mossberg 590 platform itself has a strong reputation for durability and reliability. The controls are familiar to many shotgun users, parts and support are widely available, and the overall build quality is stronger than many cheaper compact options. But still, small size comes with trade-offs. The 590S Shockwave is compact and proven, but it is not magic. If you buy it because it looks cool, you may regret it. If you buy it understanding what it is and what it is not, it can make sense. Number 3. Remington V3 TAC-13. The Remington V3 TAC-13 is one of the most interesting compact shotgun-style firearms ever made. Why? Because unlike many short pump guns, the TAC-13 is semi-automatic. That changes the experience. A semi-auto action can help reduce felt recoil and make the firearm easier to shoot compared to a pump gun of similar size. And in a compact 12-gauge platform, that matters a lot. The TAC-13 uses Remington's V3 gas system, which was designed to help manage recoil and cycle reliably with appropriate loads. It has a very very short barrel, a bird's head style grip, and an overall length around 5 inches. That makes it extremely compact compared to traditional shotguns. But once again, compact does not mean beginner friendly. The TAC 13 still lacks a full shoulder stock. It is still a 12 gauge, and it still requires the shooter to understand recoil, grip, and control. That means it is not the easiest option for everyone. There is also another issue: availability. The TAC 13 has not always been easy to find, especially compared to Mossberg compact models. And when a firearm is harder to find, parts, support, and long-term ownership can become bigger questions. That is why it lands here. The design is impressive, the size is extremely compact, and the semi-auto system gives it a real advantage over many compact pump options. But it is not something every buyer should chase blindly. If you can find one, understand it, and train with it responsibly, it is one of the most fascinating small 12-gauge platforms available. But for the average buyer, there may be more practical choices. Number 2. KelTec KS7. The KelTec KS7 is where things get really interesting, because unlike the Shockwave or TAC 13, the KS7 has a full shoulder stock, but it is still extremely short. That is because it uses a bullpup design. In simple terms, the action is placed farther back behind the trigger area. This allows the shotgun to keep a longer barrel while shrinking the overall length, and that is exactly why the KS7 is so compact. It gives you a full 5-inch barrel in a package that is only a little over 26 inches overall. That is a huge advantage for storage and tight space handling. The KS7 is also lightweight, which makes it easy to carry and move. But here's the trade-off. Lightweight 12-gauge shotguns can kick hard. A light shotgun may feel great in the hands before shooting, but once you start firing 12-gauge loads, the recoil can become very noticeable. That is one of the biggest things buyers need to understand about the KS7. It is small, it is clever, it is easy to store, but it is not soft shooting. The pump action also takes practice. Bullpup controls feel different from traditional shotguns, and some shooters need time to adjust. Still, the KS7 has a very strong argument. It gives you true shotgun barrel length in one of the shortest shoulder-fired packages available. That makes it more practical than many stockless short firearms for people who still want a real cheek weld and shoulder support. It is not perfect, but if size is the main priority and you still want a shoulder-fired shotgun, the KS7 is one of the most important options in 2026. Number 1, KelTec KSG. The number 1 spot goes to the KelTec KSG, and the reason is simple. It combines extreme compactness with high capacity in a shoulder-fired bullpup shotgun. Like the KS7, the KSG uses a bullpup layout. That keeps the overall length short while still retaining an 5-inch barrel, but the KSG adds dual magazine tubes, giving it far more onboard capacity than a traditional compact shotgun. That is what made it famous. Small size, large capacity, 12-gauge power, all in one unusual package. For home defense buyers focused on compact storage and maximum shell capacity, the KSG is hard to ignore, but it also comes with serious trade-offs. First, it is heavier and more complex than the KS7. Second, the dual tube system requires the shooter to understand how the controls work. Third, bullpup shotguns are not as natural for everyone as traditional designs. And fourth, like most compact 12-gauge shotguns, recoil and handling require practice. This is not a shotgun someone should buy and never train with. The KSG rewards familiarity. If the shooter knows the platform, it can be very capable. If the shooter does not, it can feel awkward. That is the honest truth. But in terms of pure compact home defense shotgun design, the KSG remains one of the most significant options on the market. It is smaller than traditional shotguns. It has more capacity than most pump guns, and it keeps a full barrel length in a compact package. That combination is why it takes the top spot. Not because it is perfect, but because it delivers the strongest mix of size, capacity, and practical shoulder-fired control. Final thought. The smallest shotgun is not always the best shotgun. That is the biggest lesson here. The Beretta A300 Ultima Patrol is not the shortest, but it may be one of the easiest to shoot well. The Mossberg 590S Shockwave is extremely compact, but it demands more skill because it lacks a traditional stock. The Remington V3 TAC 13 is fascinating because it brings semi-auto operation into a very short platform. The KelTec KS7 gives you bullpup compactness with a shoulder-fired design, and the KelTec KSG offers one of the most compact, high-capacity 12-gauge setups available. But every single one of these has trade-offs. Shorter length can mean sharper recoil. More compact design can mean less familiar controls. More capacity can mean more complexity. And a firearm that looks perfect online may feel very different at the range. So before choosing the smallest home defense shotgun in 2026, ask the right question. Not just, How short is it? Ask, can I control it? Can I practice with it? Can I store it safely? Can I use it responsibly and legally? Because in the real world, the best home defense shotgun is not the smallest one. It is the one you can actually handle with confidence. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe to GunWise for more real-world firearm insights, because some compact shotguns look powerful on the shelf, but only the right ones make sense when control actually matters.